Welcome to Healthcare Entrepreneur Academy, where we seek to educate, motivate, and inspire professionals into starting their own healthcare businesses. Now, please welcome your host, entrepreneur healthcare practitioner Jason Duprat.
So cool, guys. Thanks for joining me on the show, the Healthcare Entrepreneur Academy podcast. Today, I have Dr. Jason Hammond on the show. I'm super excited. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's an accomplished orthopedic surgeon, entrepreneur, inventor, and author. He specializes in sports medicine and is the founder and CEO of Air Support, which is an orthopedic health company. His first patented product is licensed for worldwide sale, and he's actually has a second patent pending product that is currently in development. He's also the author of the Good Book on stem cells for joint pain, and it's the third book in the Good series. So, super excited to have you. Thanks for joining us and sharing your story.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me, Jason. I appreciate it. This is always nice to be able to share and to let people know what's going on and how things are going. And I really am impressed that you have a platform to talk about entrepreneurship. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's such a need. I feel like most healthcare workers are just kind of sort of stuck in the daily grind, and I was definitely one of them. And so, I started to study entrepreneurship first by reading that one of those books right behind you, the Robert Kiyosaki book. Right. And there's a need, and so I just wanted to share this information with everybody out there because I know there's a huge need, and they like to hear stories and get some advice from real entrepreneurs. So, yeah,
for sure. Yeah, the two books behind me kind of changed my life. Robert Kiyosaki is awesome. He started off a Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm sure most of your audience knows about that. But I think the cash flow quadrant really talks about why it's important to be a business owner or an investor versus owning your own business, which is what self-employed folks do. And the other one by Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Workweek, really changed my life. So.
Yeah, both great books. So let's sort of start the story off by sort of where did you grow up and what school did you go to, and then sort of your first position and then how you transitioned into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I grew up in Hampton, Virginia. My dad was in the military, so I was born in Baltimore, actually at Johns Hopkins, and I wound up coming back. But I was moved from California to Florida to Virginia by the time I was 3, and he was in the Navy, so the Norfolk Naval Base is down that way. So I grew up there, and I really liked the area, but I had the opportunity to go to Atlanta for college. I went to college at Morehouse College in Atlanta, and so that opportunity. Atlanta is a phenomenal city, and so I went to Morehouse College, and it was excellent. Kind of showed me how that I could be anything or do anything that I wanted to do. And it was a great launching platform for me. And so I majored in biology, pre-med, and wound up from there going into medicine and going to Johns Hopkins for medical school. And so I was there, met my wife in this area and just kind of stayed around. We have been living here since 97, and I did some in the medical school here. Then I did my orthopedic residency at Hopkins as well. And then I did an extra year, did a sports medicine fellowship. And so I finished, got out in 2007. And I've been practicing ever since, doing sports medicine, dealing mainly with knee and shoulder injuries, and doing knee replacements as well. And so it's been a great ride.
Awesome. And so your first position, take us back to your first entrepreneurial start. Take us back to that time period, sort of what was your inspiration or motivation for wanting to start a side business, and just kind of walk us through that journey and what you were thinking as you were going through it.
Yeah. So, I always knew that I wanted to own something. I wanted to grow something myself. I wanted to be kind of quote unquote in charge of my own destiny. But I really had no idea how to go about that. And growing up, we didn't have a lot of business owners around. And so I was pretty, clueless, but I thought, just being a physician was the way to go. And so that's kind of where I was focused. Just kind of wanted to get out, own my own practice, put up my shingle, and own that business. Turns out when I was in medical school, somebody came to me about a multi-level marketing business. And it was interesting. It pretty much changed my whole world, because that's the first time I heard of the concept of passive income and having money work for you, or money that you don't have to physically work for coming in, that will come in 24 hours when you're asleep, you're still making money. And, even though that venture didn't work out for me, it really changed my mindset, which is half the battle of entrepreneurship, being in the right mindset and being around the right people to help you. And so that's where, I kind of learned a lot about entrepreneurship, the idea of being able to make money without necessarily doing the work once and continuing to make money. Learn about Robert Kiyosaki, some of these other authors who really explain that. And then that fire really was burning hot in me. So I did that while I was in medical school and beginning of residency, but there was no way I can do a whole lot during my residency. So I was focused on just doing, my orthopedic thing is, a minimum of 80 hours a week. I was in 100 hours, sometimes 120 hours a week. So, that was pretty much my full-time thing. And then getting out, I decided to, really work on my practice and my crafts. But in the end, I wanted to do something on the side. And really, it came just about 5 years ago. I really decided, okay, what is it that I am good at? I want to stay in my niche, and I want to just kind of develop what I'm good at instead of trying to recreate the wheel or going to lanes where I'm not the most savvy. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now. We've had a lot of different entrepreneurial ventures and some ups and downs with that, and that's kind of how I got that mindset.
So when it was with the MLM, what was that? If you don't mind me asking, what did you learn from that? Because there's definitely a learning process in that for sure. I would assume that you're learning how to sell people and communicate well and stuff like that. So yeah.
So the business that I was introduced to was called Quixtar, and that, if you're familiar with that, it's Amway. And so they had changed their name to Quixtar, I guess, for their marketing purposes, and they kind of went back to Amway. And that process was, we learned a lot about selling, a lot about cold calling, a lot of just getting out of your comfort zone, talking to people and sharing what the business model was all about. And, you're trying to grow a downline so that, the products that you sell are products that they sell as well. And then that it all benefits. And so we went to conferences, they are really great conferences that really fire you up and inspire you to get you going. They have great reading materials. I mean, that's all necessary to be able to go through the ups and downs of that kind of business as well. It's a great business model. And actually, Robert Kiyosaki talks about that business model in his book. It just wasn't a model that worked for me. And it wasn't, just the model for me. But, I think that it really helped set my mind and get me to the point where, I am here now. So I totally credit that. And so, from there, I knew I wanted to grow a business. We had looked into franchising and looked into, books, and there's lots of ways to make money. And so really it's a matter of what is it that fires you up, what passion you have inside of you, and kind of tailoring that to what your expertise is as well.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because that's really common with entrepreneurs. They have so many ideas and all these business opportunities that are running through their minds. Staying focused is half the battle. So you're not getting shiny object syndrome and chasing everything, but never doing anything to the finish line. You'd mentioned the comfort zone and how the MLM sort of taught you how to step out of your comfort zone. That is super vital to being able to move from being full-time, W-2 employee to starting your own business or buying a business. So maybe you could just speak to that a little bit. What's the problem with being stuck in your comfort zone, and why do you think it's important to move out of it?
We entrepreneurs are a rare breed. There's not that many people around that think like us and that have that passion and that fire kind of like us. So you're kind of, a lot of what you're doing and the ideas that you're presenting are either foreign to other people, or they'll pat you on the back and say good job or good luck, and you really don't feel like you got the support. And so you got to be able to have something that kind of motivates you and to be able to really to go. Because if you want to be comfortable, you can work the 9 to 5, walk, talk about it around the water cooler all day with folks, go home and do the same thing over and over again, and then wind up, retiring when you're 65, 70, 80, in some cases. That's what a comfortable life will do, but I think if you want to step out of that, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, which is not easy at all. And so, and you got to be able to take risks. Risks are vital to any entrepreneurship journey, not only just a risk from an investment standpoint, but a risk in how people are going to think about you, what people are going to think about you, your reputation. It may take a risk. Just your time, putting time into something that you have no idea if it's going to work or not. That is a risk, and obviously the investment is definitely a risk as well. So all that is uncomfortable.
Yeah, great points. It's funny because people sometimes aren't happy with their current situation, but they're not doing anything different to sort of change it. And if you the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Right. And so if you're not happy with your lifestyle or your income or the hours you're working, you can't just keep doing that same sort of cycle over and over again. Yeah. And the only way to break that cycle is to leave your comfort zone. Yeah. So I love that. One thing that you had mentioned too is that mentors were super important to you. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could just speak on that a little bit. For me personally, I started out by having, using books as my mentors, books and podcasts, because I didn't know any healthcare entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general. My family is all W-2 employees. Right. So how did you sort of get yourself surrounded by some good mentors, and who were those for you? Yeah. So part of that MLM program, the Quixtar, the Amway, and the others out there, that is how they surround you, because you have a downline. So your success is going to help the person above you. So they're really trying to mold you and they're kind of helping you along the way. So I realized the value of that early on. But after I got out of that business, I was again on my own, really not around a lot of folks that can help me. So we did a number of things. We every time we moved out of our townhouse, we kept the townhouse. And we decided to rent those out. We decided that after a while, we were paying as much in mortgages as we were in making in rent, and we really weren't. We were spinning our wheels there. That wasn't really helping us. So we decided to sell all of those and venture out into the restaurant business. I've always wanted to go into the restaurant business, but I didn't really know what that was all about. Long story short, we got into a franchise called Firehouse Subs. And so we own a Firehouse Subs franchise. Now I'm getting to your question because there was no way I could start a restaurant on my own without mentorship. Restaurants close, you can barely make it a year if you have no support system. And so the franchise system was really helpful for us because they had quote unquote mentors helping you along the way. Actually, you have no choice but to do things their way in a cookie cutter fashion. And they have conferences and people to help you. But that is the only way that we could survive with the franchise. So that was really helpful from a mentorship standpoint. Then I have decided to start getting into inventing, and then I was back on my again, trying to figure out. I don't know anybody who's had patents. I don't know any inventors in any industry, let alone the healthcare industry. And so trying to figure that out on my own was really difficult. And so I had to try to get around people who at least knew kind of the landscape in product development and product services and marketing. So that's when I started digging into podcasts. I really had to look into who is doing kind of something similar to what I want to do and can fire me up. And believe it or not, there's a ton of people out there doing podcasts on entrepreneurship. And so I really dug into that. And even though I was alone, quote unquote, I wasn't, because I was really getting a lot of information from a lot of these podcasters. And that kind of really helped me along the way. Awesome. Yeah, I absolutely love podcasts. And that was sort of the inspiration of starting this show. Is like, there's nobody talking about healthcare entrepreneurship. So nobody's doing it. Why don't I do it? I'm a huge fan of John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Okay.
We actually did a mastermind with him a couple months ago in Puerto Rico. Super great guy, but he's been sort of my mentor and sort of coach, and look up to him a lot. Learned a ton from him. And one of the things he says is you're the average of your top 5 closest friends, or the people you hang out with the most. And so if you're not around entrepreneurs, like, you got to get around them. The best way to do that, one of the best ways, is one-on-one, like person to person, but also just through podcasts and listening to them. It's the next best thing.
No, for sure. And a lot of the podcasters do have conferences and other things that you can get involved with. And so I did that as well. And that's how you can do other networking and meet folks. So that's a great way to go. Yeah.
Great. So let's circle back to, if you don't mind, the restaurant business. How long did you have that for? What was your thought process when you started it? Do you still have it?
Yeah. So yes, we still have it. We'll be 7 years this coming December. And so, we've the Firehouse Subs. I don't know. Do you have you know about Firehouse Subs?
Oh yeah, they're awesome. I love those subs.
Yeah. So it started in Jacksonville. So they the first time we wanted to do a franchise, and we were looking around a lot of different places, and I tasted their sub, and I was like, okay, this is great. And they were it was good timing because they were expanding in our area at that time, and so we talked to the area representative, and you have to have a contract for an area development agreement for most franchises, but specifically Firehouse Subs. And so at the time we purchased an area development agreement for just one. We were thought about doing multiple ones, but we settled on just doing one. And for us that has been just fine to do one franchise, because even though you can really make a lot of money with franchising, it comes with purchasing or developing a lot of stores, and that wasn't necessarily the route that we wanted to go. I partnered. It was interesting, so I don't run the Firehouse Subs myself, and my wife and I partnered with a gentleman who runs the Firehouse Subs. So it is the owner has to be 50% owner who's actually there running it. So the operating owner has to have a 50% share. So he's operating it, and we helped kind of put in the capital to go. So I go there a lot to just kind of see how things are going, mainly to eat good food. And but my other guy, he runs it. But it has been a fantastic learning experience. Not just a lot of business principles can be translated into other aspects of other areas. So, risking going out and getting your feet wet really helps you. So we learned about P&Ls, we learned about, the profit and loss, we learned about balance sheets, and, learned about all these accounting techniques that I really didn't know about. In my practice, I'm employed as an orthopedic surgeon, so I'm not running my own practice. So we have a business manager who takes care of all of that stuff. And also, for the most part, even doctors aren't the best entrepreneurs anyway in general, because they're not doing a lot of the running the practice themselves. So they need a lot of help with that. So we don't learn any of that in medical school. And when we go out and run a practice, we're trying to figure it out as we are going. So anyway, the restaurant business definitely has been really helpful into getting these techniques, learning the language of accounting, learning how to run a successful business, learning how to market, local marketing, commercials, all that stuff, inventory. Restauranting is a whole nother story.
Yeah. Restaurants are a beast. I actually, I don't know if you know this, but I was actually I've worked in restaurants since I was 15 until I was like 23.
Yeah.
And I was a restaurant manager at an IHOP in Rochester, New York for almost 2 years, and then switched to Macaroni Grill before finally deciding to change careers. It's a tough business. Margins are tight. Employees are tough to manage. And that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. So in the MLM, you're self-employed as an MLM. You don't really have employees. So this was your first step towards hiring staff and employees.
Right.
What was that experience like? What were some of the challenges, and any advice for finding top quality people?
So yes, so HR is a whole other can of worms, and that can ruin your business. Let alone, inventory is a big deal. Just your overall accounting, human resources, trying to hire and fire folks, and most of our employees are minimum wage employees, and so we are trying to hire the best people possible. But you're in a restaurant business, your margins are so thin, you can't pay an extraordinary amount of money. So the turnover is significant in this industry. You're constantly retraining, constantly hiring. So that is exhausting. We've been fortunate to have a manager that's been with us for the entire time that we've been there, but she's the only employee in the 7 years that's been with us the whole 7 years. Really, it's a matter of trying. When you hire somebody, you just got to go based on the interview and gut feeling. But treating them well, treating people, even though you may not be able to pay an exorbitant amount of money, you just got to create the best work environment possible. Treat people with respect, make them feel like they're wanted and valued. If they have any ideas, take it and then see if you can implement them. Letting people, just communicating effectively, letting people know when they're on the clock and when they're not, or when their days off and when they're going to be on something, and making sure they get paid. I guess that's the bottom line. People do not like missing a check, and they will, especially if they need it. Everybody needs their check, but these folks, most of them are working check to check, so that's another thing. So it's difficult, and we've learned a lot along that way. We've learned how to do a good employee handbook. The first ones weren't that great, and we can't say that we were great from the beginning of this, but we've had to learn.
Awesome. Yeah, and all that stuff is like so transferable to any next entrepreneur thing that you start to do, which is awesome. Everything sort of compounds on itself. Most people start small, part-time, and then work their way into bigger and bigger. For me, we just hired our first employee this week. So
congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's good.
So when it came to your next step, so you had the restaurant, what was your next entrepreneurial step that you took?
Yeah. So, I've always loved real estate. My wife really likes real estate as well. And so that's why we were doing the townhouses before we moved. We moved twice, 3 times actually, before we got to the house we are now. And so we've kept those 3 townhouses. And dealing with renters is something else that it's a skill that you got to develop, and being able to market a townhouse. But that was right before we did the franchising. So we decided to sell those, liquidate those, and then that's where we used some capital from there to get the franchise. After that, we kind of been in a period. I was in a period of just trying to figure out what is going to be the best thing for me, and it took quite some time to realize, all right, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I have a skill set that can be valuable. How can I use this from an entrepreneurial standpoint? Not without just seeing patients, but really kind of digging into. I see needs all the time, and I'm a creative person, and I really wanted to figure out how to develop a product, and I wanted to invent something. I wanted to create something, but didn't really. And I had. When you're always writing down in a composition book all these different ideas. I've had all kinds of crazy ideas. One of my ideas was, all right, how do you, if you're on a golf course, how do you, is there a way to be able to have a bladder along your leg so that you don't have to go to the bathroom? Just crazy. You just think of all kinds of crazy stuff. Along the way, and most of the things, the hundreds of ideas don't stick. Some of them you can try to do, and you Google it and you see somebody else already has it. But I just kept pushing, and there was a device that's used in shoulder surgery, where we, in order to do a minimally invasive procedure, we do it through small poke holes along the shoulder. and we have to open up that space so that we can get a device in and out of the shoulder so it doesn't get caught on muscle. And there is what we call a cannula, which is like a tube that you put in, and it opens a space. It gives a conduit to put instruments in and out. And there was one that is it's really flimsy that really wasn't, we had to put it in by taking the clamp and jamming it into the space. And it really was not ideal. It was something that it would tear the cannula. So I kind of decided, okay, that's something I'm going to touch on. And I was able to really try to develop that. I did start off with going to the company Arthrex, which is the company that eventually worked it out. But I went to them and talked about it, and they weren't so keen on it. They get hundreds of doctors talking to them about ideas all the time, and so trying to break into as a consultant or as a qualified inventor or somebody that people would listen to is pretty difficult. And so I decided so I talked to them about it, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea, but we'll try it out." And they tried it. They tried to put it together, and it didn't work. And then they said, "Okay, we're not going to do this. You're on your own." So then I had to kind of figure out how to do it on my own, which took another set of skills and and networking, trying to figure that out. But it turned out to be worth it.
Cool. So that's definitely totally leaving the realm of your previous experience. So like creating a product, inventing it, patenting it. Yeah. So what was that process like? I mean, you have to design it first of all, right? And then you have to find a manufacturer, then testing. Is there FDA approval? What's all that stuff look like?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways to go about. You can license the products, or you can kind of sell it on your own. And so when you're kind of deciding what you're going to do is kind of what is it that do you want? So licensing a product means that you are giving up all the control pretty much, but you're getting royalties, a percentage of the device and of the sales of the device. When you do it on your own, you're taking an exorbitant amount of risk to that. A lot of money goes into it, and you really got to explore the market yourself and see if it works. And a lot of products that are first out there, they don't make it, they fail. So, I decided, okay, I like the licensing aspect of things. I can do something, I can give it to the company, and they will take care of it, and I'll get checks for the rest of my life, and all is good. So that's my thoughts. And that's, going back to the whole passive income, being a business owner, making money while you sleep. That's kind of my thought process. But like if anything, it's not ever that easy. And so I decided. So when I had to do it on my own, I got a mechanical engineer to help me with this. And so I found one on Upwork.com. I use Upwork a ton for all kinds of things. And so this is a guy in Pakistan that was able to 3D. So first, before I found him, I really just kind of drew a lot of designs on napkins and in my composition book, and kind of trying to figure things out. And so then I kind of went to him, and he kind of put in his 2 cents, and we kind of developed something. And it turned out that there was some ups and downs with it, but we 3D printed it, and I took it back to Arthrex, and it long story short, it worked. And they really liked it, and that was it. And it took about 3 years after they saw it. They said that they wanted to license it before it actually got on the market. And so it got on the market this past September, and I presented it to them initially in 2015. And so it can take some time to develop a product and get it out to market for sure.
Yeah, that's a testament to your grind and your hustle and your dedication and staying focused. You saw it through to the end. Yeah. So yeah, great job on that. That's impressive.
Appreciate it.
When it comes to how you took the 3D design to Arthrex, in that process, I'm assuming there's some risk if you don't have it patented. Did you have it patented? How do you protect yourself when you're sharing your idea with a potential licensee?
So before I even went to them the first time, I did what was called a provisional patent. So a provisional patent is, so you put it into the patent office, you put in your ideas, and on a patent, and that what it does is it secures the date of when you developed your idea. And so that was in April of 2015. Now you have a full year to either decide to continue and do a non-provisional patent or to let it go. But the provisional patent allows you to freely discuss it with whomever because you have that protection. And you can, throughout that year, you can decide if it's something that you want to pursue or not, because patenting is not inexpensive. And so you can do a provisional patent. It's not reviewed by a patent attorney, and it's only to hold that spot to say that you were the first to invent this, and you have a full year. Now, if you don't renew it, if you don't do a non-provisional patent before that provisional patent expires, then you're out of luck and you can't patent it at all. So, there is that risk. So yeah, before I talked to them, I did the provisional patents. You can do non-disclosure agreements if you don't want to do a patent, but Arthrex does not do that, and it doesn't have the same weight because they feel that if you want to tell us the product. If not, then don't tell us. They don't. It was kind of like that. We don't really care. Do you trust us or not? Mm-hmm. I was like, let me get the provisional patent just in case. I think they're overall, a solid company, and they wouldn't necessarily, take my idea and do something with it. But you should protect yourself regardless. And not all companies may, have that may not feel the same and may take your idea. So IP protection is a whole other route that I had to learn and kind of get very familiar with.
Awesome. Great story. When it comes to, so did they license the product from you? Is that how it finally played out?
Yep. Okay. So, when so it's an interesting story. I went to a lab where they were, where surgeons were teaching other surgeons. And this is where I was going to show them the product. And so when I was, the design, it had a capture where it was that would hold that soft cannula in place. It would actually capture it. It was a hole that it would go in and it would capture it. And whenever I stuck it into the shoulder, it would tear the cannula. And it's every time. And I went there specifically to show them my products. But every time I used it, it would actually tear the device that I was supposed to be putting in. And so I really was down to the wire because I had about half an hour and 20 minutes before I had to show one of the guys and show the product representatives what I had. And, I didn't want to just show it to him and then it completely, destroyed the product that I was trying to help. So I wound up just taking off that capture and just doing it without it. And it turned out to work about 5 minutes before I actually had to show them what it's all about. And it worked perfectly at that time. And so they decided then, okay, we're going to take this back to the guys in Florida at their headquarters and look at it. And they then did their independent testing. So they got other surgeons to come in and decided to see that it works, and it did. And as they and because it continued to work, they decided, all right, I think we're going to license this product for future use. And so we just developed a royalty agreement for that. And so there's a percentage of the products every time one is sold or given, that's what I would get a percentage of that. And that's the typical for most licensing agreements, the royalty agreements.
Any advice briefly on what you might want to consider as you're negotiating a royalty agreement?
Yeah. So, the intellectual property is key if you can get a device that has intellectual property, because that's, since I already had the intellectual property, I still own the rights to that. And because it is patent, so when it was patent pending, the royalty amount was less. And now that it's patented, it jumps up the royalty amount. So if you can get a patent, that makes your invention even more valuable, obviously. And it's more difficult to sell a product to a company to license if you don't have if there's no way that other competitors can't just come in and get your product. And so that's the key. And you can do a patent search initially to see if it's even worth going down that road or not, because it can be a long process to go down the road and expensive. And if you do a pattern search, you can easily see if somebody already has something similar, or if this kind of open territory that you can go after. And then, as I feel that in order to really pursue something, you got to be able to tell people about it, and not be too concerned about people stealing your idea. Going through this process, for somebody to steal your idea and take it to market, that is a huge undertaking, and it's not easy. So, those fears of people stealing your idea are real for sure. But you've got to tell the right person who wants to do your product and has the resources and the connections to do it. And most people do not. So, talking to people about it can be more helpful than not, because people will say if it stinks or not, and you'll be able to get the market to help you out. But if you want to do non-provisional, if you want to do a provisional patent or non-disclosure agreements, those are all helpful as well. But definitely we'll talk to folks. But yes, so if you're going to look at licensing, try to get some intellectual property for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great advice. I wanted to just circle back to the FDA approval. Is there FDA approval on like equipment that you're using on patients, or is that only devices that you're like installing in a patient during surgery?
Right. So there are different classifications for different devices. Mm-hmm. This device is only used to insert another device into the patient, and then it comes out. So it's not something that stays in the patient. So there's a less oversight that needs to happen. So any brace that you put on an arm or a leg or things like that, those are class 1 devices, which don't need significant FDA approval. And this is one of them that does not need significant FDA approval.
Okay.
If you're inventing something that you're ingesting, like a pill or an implant that stays in the patient, then that is a big undertaking, and you definitely need industry help for those undertakings.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I guess the only exception to the pill would be supplements, which aren't FDA approved.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're the pill, okay. So if you're trying to do something that has a stated goal of changing disease, and you've got some research to say that, and the actual medicine changes the biologic function somehow, that is a different level of classification. Now, supplements are used to support and enhance, different wording, that type of thing.
Okay, yeah, that makes good sense. So that kind of segues us good into as far as Class 1 FDA approval and non-installed sort of inventions or devices that you're using for surgery. Now, that's a great transition into what your other business is now. That I've noticed you have an Amazon store and you sell orthopedic devices. Did you? How did you transition into that? Do you invent those devices as well, or?
Right. So when I around the same time when I was inventing this product for the shoulder, I also was doing a lot of skiing, and I was training for a half marathon. And that December, I guess it was December 2014, I was skiing and going every weekend around here, which isn't the greatest of mountains. I'm not sure there's much skiing down where you are, but I doubt it. But up here, the mountains aren't that great, but it was still fairly fun.
And you're in Maryland for the audience who was.
Oh yeah, I'm in Maryland, right? So it's not anything like out west for sure, but it's nice to get out there. My ski boots turned out to be too tight, and I developed a lot of pain on the bunion on the side of my big toe, and that bone that kind of juts out there. And I never had bunion problems before or any pain along that, along those lines at all. But, for those who ski, they know that ski boots are meant to be tight so that they snug the foot, so that when you go down the slope, your foot isn't sloshing around, and you got that support. And so I developed pain when I was walking with any type of shoe that I wear. Even when I went back to work, it was really painful to walk in my shoe, let alone run and try to train for this half marathon that I was doing. So I had to develop a way to get that pressure off of my toe, because I couldn't work. So I developed a way to develop a cushion that would push the shoe, because the problem with the shoe was pushing against the bunion. So I wanted to develop a cushion that would keep the shoe from pressing on that painful part. And some some 2x2 pads, some gauze pads, and wrapped it with a wrap called Coban around my arch of my foot, and it pushed the shoe away from the bunion, and it felt a lot better. I could walk, I could even run, and because that pressure was off from my shoe, I was able to. The pain got better. I was able to rest it, and I eventually, after a couple of weeks, didn't need the device at all. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I looked into, did a patent search on it. I didn't see much on that at all. And I decided, okay, I'm going to go into trying to develop a device for bunion pain. But this is something that also can be used for other parts of the foot that are painful when you're wearing a shoe. And so I got I did a provisional patent on it, looked into it more, and then I did a non-provisional patent. Now that patent is still pending, but it is it's still out there. So now, how was I going to get it to market? Well, I really like the licensing idea, and so I talked to a number of companies, and I went to talk to one company in New York about it, and they were like, "Oh, that's pretty cool," and they said that they were going to look into it, but then they decided, no, it's too much work. I don't think we'll get the margins that we want, and so we're not going to do this. And I started thinking about it. I don't know if I wanted to lose too much control. I wanted to continue to make it like I wanted to, and so I decided, okay, I'm going to do this myself, and I'm going to sell it myself. Now, I had no clue how to do that. I've never done that before. I never knew I didn't have any distribution network. I have never sold on a global scale. I've sold vitamins for Amway or Quixtar, locally, but nothing on a global scale. And that's when I decided, okay, I need to figure out how to do that. And the best way to figure that out is with Amazon. And that's one of the reasons why I started digging into the podcast, because I knew nobody who ever had done anything like this, started an Amazon business or whatever. So I did that, and I realized there was something called private labeling, where you can take a product and you can do the exact same product as somebody else, and it doesn't need any intellectual property, and you can sell it. You see this on Amazon all the time. There's the same product people are selling. And you can have, and you go into your local grocery store. I guess I don't know if it's Publix down where you are, it's Giant or Wegmans up here. You got Cheerios and you got Tostios right beside each other. Well, the Tostios are private label products, probably by the same manufacturer, and they can sell it. Well, I decided, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do some private labeling. I'm gonna learn the business. I'm gonna be able to test my products out on the in the Amazon marketplace, and then I will after I do that and develop a presence in a distribution network, then I can introduce my own product line into that, in my patented product line, and kind of go from there. So that's what I decided to do. And so in 2017, I kind of made that leap and learned how to do an Amazon business. And then you have to figure out where to get these products from. So I had to figure out calling how I got to get in touch with Chinese manufacturers. And then you got to do quality control there and get somebody you trust, and then getting it shipped from China to the United States, and then distributing it to Amazon. And well, it's quite a process, as you can imagine.
Hey, yeah, kudos to you for figuring all that out, because there's a lot of moving parts to that for sure. Holy cow, that's really impressive. So have you gone to China to look at manufacturing plants and find producers and stuff like that?
No, I haven't physically gone to China yet. What I've found a Chinese manufacturer and a point of contact that I really like, and who we've been communicating mainly over Skype. And everything that we do, she'll send me some of the samples, and I get to check them out and see that I like them. She'll take plenty of pictures while she's over there to make sure that I like it, and kind of go from there. And for the most part, we're not making huge orders. I'll do 500 units at a time or 1,000 units at a time, and then kind of test it in Amazon, and then see how that goes. And then I need to then make adjustments from there. Now, the best way to go is not to just copy somebody else's stuff, because then you're just like everybody else. So I do try to put my spin on a lot of the products that I have, and kind of tweak it a little bit, so that it's something that's different than everybody else's, but it's still something that is a private label product. And so that's kind of where we are, and just brand new in it. Been a little over a year, that we've been doing it, and it's been quite the process, quite the learning process.
Awesome. We could probably do an entire whole nother interview on just that part of it. There's so many questions I have right now, but we're approaching our time limit. And so I just want to be respectful of your time. And I thank you for coming on here with us and sharing all this information. You're crushing it, and you're just doing phenomenal things. And that's awesome. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it anytime. And yeah, we definitely have to do a part 2 sometime. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any last words of advice or parting words of wisdom that you have for somebody who's trying to get their foot in the door in the entrepreneurial world?
Yeah. So listen, just to your instincts. I do think that don't be afraid to take risk and jump out there, because most of the people who you are around are not major risk takers for the most part. And so they may not be doing what you may want to do. And so step out there, get advice, learn from other people. If you don't know anybody, do some podcasting, get into some conferences. That can be very helpful. And stay in your lane. That can be really helpful to stay in your lane. I do a lot of wild things that you have to completely invent the wheel, or you don't know anything about. I'm not inventing rocket ships. I'm staying in my lane with orthopedic stuff, and have help and have mentors. That's the way to go.
Awesome. Yeah, that's sort of one of the things I'm sort of trying to do with this show is help people to sort of leverage their healthcare background and see all these different opportunities that are available to essentially stay in your lane and leverage that healthcare background while still getting into the entrepreneurial side of things. So yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm going to sign off the live here. Thanks again. I just want to share real quick the best way to get a hold of you for anybody who's interested. You're on Instagram, right? You have a website. It's drjasonhammond.com. Yeah. And then to find you on Instagram or your favorite social media, how would anybody do that? Yeah, so you can go to @DrJasonHammond for Instagram or for Facebook, and that's where you can find me. My product store is airsupport.com, and so you can find me there. And you can also, if you Google my name, Dr. Jason Hammond, you'll be able to find my book as well. And so there are lots of different ways to get in touch with me if you would like. Okay, cool. Awesome. So thanks again. I'm going to sign off the live, and then if you don't mind,
this is Patrick with the Healthcare Entrepreneur Academy. We just want to thank you guys for watching today. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification button in the top right corner of the screen. So every Tuesday and Thursday, you'll get a notification letting you know that we have a brand new episode on the channel. Also, make sure you guys drop a like and leave us a quick comment letting us know what you thought was the most interesting or applicable piece of advice you got from today's episode. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.